Greetings, everyone. My name is Lou Charest, and I work for Catholic Relief Services on their CRS University Engagement Team. We're pleased to be joined today by Father Héctor, Fabio, Henao from Colombia. Father, thank you very much for your time and for being here today. Could you give us a little bit of background professionally as to who you are and your work currently?
Well, I'm a priest. I studied theology and sociology in Colombia, and then I studied sociology also in Rome at the Gregorian University, and doctor in sociology. And going back to Colombia, I started to work on the social ministry office in my born city, which is Medellin. And then afterward, I was invited to work in Bogotá at a national level as director of Caritas Colombiana, which is one of the biggest network in Colombia working in humanitarian issues, peace building, and development.
Great. How long have you been working with Caritas?
As the director at the national level for 20 years.
Wow, great. And can you talk more about some of those issues that Caritas focuses on? You mentioned a couple, peace building, refugees.
Caritas is very linked since the beginning to emergencies. So I have been working for many years in different kinds of emergencies. But with the internal armed conflict in Colombia, we focus on the situation of the internal displaced population. Colombia has more or less 6 million internal displaced people. It's one of the most difficult situations in the world, and in the Western Hemisphere is the first humanitarian crisis in terms of this internal displacement. So what we do is to accompany the people, to bring them shelter, food, health, etc. On the other hand, we work on peace building, is to try to stop the internal war, is to engage the communities to build the regions and the relations in a different way. Colombia, since 6 decades, is having an internal conflict. Many people have been killed, kidnapped. Some people have been disappeared. So we are speaking about millions and millions of people who have suffered the internal war. At the moment, we have a negotiation between the government and the guerrillas in Havana, and we are very focused on peace building from the grassroots level. I mean, from the territories, from the regions. At the local level, we work very hard to involve the people in the negotiation, but to involve the people in a long-term process of peace building. We work also on human rights. As I said before, many people have been victims of atrocities committed by different actors. Well, what we try to do is to support the victims, to support the survivors, giving them legal assistance in one hand, and on the other hand, trying to give them protection when they need to flee from their regions because they are threatened. And in terms of development, we are very focused in the rural areas, in the countryside. We work certainly in the cities, but most of the problems are in the countryside, in particular in the Pacific coast, where we have a lot of indigenous and Afro-Colombians living under the extreme poverty in a very difficult situation, and we work very hard with them to give them access to water, etc. But that is not the only case. We work all around the country with productive projects and giving support to the people, in particular the most vulnerable.
Thank you. Can you describe and offer more context around the history, the nature of this conflict? You mentioned it dates back several decades. Can you help us understand the key actors and what the context in the country is that is causing 6 million people to be internally displaced?
Yes, by 6 decades ago, the internal conflict started in Colombia. The causes was the exclusion of most of the people from the political participation. Also, the people felt at that moment that the social exclusion was very high. There were a very big gap between those in power and the rich people and the most vulnerable and poor people. So in particular in the countryside, the situation was getting very difficult. So due to that reasons, I mean, in a political context, the guerrillas started to fight against the government. During this decade, many things have happened. For example, drugs trafficking started in Colombia, and around drugs trafficking, another illegal groups started to fight against the guerrillas and against also the army. They were the paramilitaries. We had new guerrillas born during the process also. At the moment, we had two important guerrillas, the oldest guerrilla in the world, which is the FARC, and the second one is the National Liberation Army, ELN, which is not so powerful, but is also important. That means they try to control the regions and they try to impose their norms and their ideas to the population. In fact, Colombia, in this decades, had many different situations related to massacres, for example. Very important massacres have been committed. I remember one that was committed in the Pacific coast when the people during a confrontation between the army and the guerrilla, they seek refuge in the chapel of the town, and a bomb exploded in the middle of the chapel, killing 100 people the same day. So the people have suffered too much, and many people lost everything in behind when they flee from the region. So many people had been dispossessed of their lands. According to the government, more or less 8 million hectares of land had been dispossessed to the poor peasants. And now the process is going in the sense that we have a law for land restitution. That law also speaks about the recognition of the rights of the victims in terms of restoration of the lands, but the process is just starting. We have a long way to go to solve the situation of the victims, of the people who have suffered the different atrocities in the framework of the internal armed conflict in Colombia.
So you've described this humanitarian situation and offered some solutions around economic livelihood and returning people to their land. But given all the suffering, can you talk more about the church's role and work in reconciliation and healing? And what specifically does that look like, and what is needed to be able to heal the community from the trauma and suffering that's happened over the past few decades?
Well, the church has a very comprehensive plan for the post-conflict. I mean, it is now going on, but will be strengthened after the negotiation with the guerrillas. First of all, the church is very focused on the victims. We must work very hard with the victims for the restoration of their rights. I mean, the church accompany the victims. We receive the victims in the parishes, and in each of the parishes, we have something for them, and the doors of the church are open to receive them and to accompany them in their needs. But second, we have to open the door for the perpetrators, for them also to rebuild their dignity, because they destroy the dignity of the victims, but they destroy their own dignity also. So if we want to work on reconciliation, we must work with both. We must try to convince the perpetrators to abandon the style of life they had before and to embrace a new way of life. That is very particular because that means conversion, that means change, a deep change in their lives. They need to change options. And the ocean is for life, the ocean is for the other ones, the ocean is for peace. Third, we must encourage all the population to build a new society. Reconciliation is not to go back. It's not to go to previous situation we had before. The reconciliation is to build something new. It's like creation. It's related to creation. Reconciliation and creation are very linked. So we have to work on reconciliation in terms of looking out for the situation that we must transform. We must change too many things. To transform the society, the relations is quite important. And that means democracy, that means strengthening the civil society, that means strengthening the local organizations at the grassroots level, that means working with the peasants, with the poor people in the cities, etc. Invite them to get together and to set up their own organizations and to get engaged in the democracy, in the civil dialogue. That is something that the church can do for the population. But the most important is trauma healing. The church had the possibility to listen carefully to those in suffering. The church had the capacity to walk with them for a long term. The people need truth, and there will be trials, and a special commission for truth in Colombia. But the Truth Commission, they are not able to heal, to dealing with the suffering of the people. They will do something, but our contribution is going deeper. It's trying to touch the heart of the people. It's trying to deal with the deepest traumas the people have. And that is the main, probably that is the main challenge for the church. And at the same time, is promote forgiveness. Forgiveness is quite important. The civil society in Colombia is quite divided. The society is polarized. Many people hate some groups, and we need to work in favor of forgiveness.
Thank you, Father. That's a beautiful message and very important work that we wish to support and extend our prayers to those that are suffering from that trauma. You are here now in the United States for a major peacebuilding conference. Can you just share with U.S. university students what is your core message, and is there any way that the international community, that the U.S. Government can play a role in fostering peace, the U.S. Church? Students who wish to positively engage and be in support and solidarity with these efforts. What message do you have for them?
The message is all of us, we are members of the human family. Peace is not an issue for some countries far away. Peace is the biggest challenge for the human family. It's something that involves everyone. And we must try to contribute from the universities, try to reflect more about the suffering of the people living under situations like internal wars, etc. People who have suffered everyday violence. If we want to have a better world, we must get connected and work for peace and reconciliation.